This is the Pennsylvania Report with State Senator Rob Teplitz. The Pennsylvania Report, a look at your state government working for the future of Dauphin and Perry counties. Hi, thanks for joining us. We're talking with Senator Teplitz about school funding. That's something that comes up all the time. With budget season underway, it's right there in the forefront. The governor has signed a bill that allows for a new formula for school funding. Now, you were on a commission to put that formula together. Tell us about the formula, what it does, and why it's important.
Sure. There was a bipartisan commission that was set up a few years ago with members of the House, Senate, and the administration, Republicans and Democrats. And we spent about a year studying the problem of school funding. Not the level of school funding overall, but how the money is divided up among school districts across the state. And we developed a new formula that takes into account the needs of specific students in a district. How many are in poverty, how many don't speak English as a primary language, those kind of issues, plus the needs or the ability really of the community to fund those students. So what is the tax base? How much can the local community contribute? And out of that, we were able to develop a formula that everyone agreed to. The commission agreed to it, the legislature agreed to it, and the governor signed it into law.
Now, when we're talking about this is just distribution of funds. So this doesn't mandate how much the state has to come up with. It just mandates when the state comes up with that money, where it goes. Is that right?
Right. I mean, if you think about school funding, there's two aspects of it. There's how big is the pie, and then there's how do you divide up the pie. How big the pie is, that's going to be fought over every year during the budget process. And that's important because that's the overall level. But how you divide up the pie, regardless of how big the pie is, that has not been done fairly for a very long time. We haven't had a formula really for the last 25 years. So we set out how do you divide it up fairly among school districts all across the state.
Now, there have been studies that have shown that poorer school districts in this state suffer a great deal more than rich school districts in the sense of, because how we fund it is based on property tax, places with a lot of very rich properties can give a lot more money to their schools than poor properties, and the school districts in the poor areas are really, really suffering. Does this address that?
Exactly. I mean, what we really tried to get at the heart of is making sure that the students who needed the most help have the appropriate level of investment in their local schools. That's why we take into account, what is the poverty level of those students? What are the various characteristics that make a particular student need more help, more of an investment, but also can the community afford that? And all of those are factors in a complicated formula, but various factors with different weights for those factors, so that we're making sure that we get the right amount of money percentage-wise to the right district.
Now, when we're talking about percentages of students that need help, you talked about those who don't speak English as a primary language. We also have special needs students and that sort of thing. So the more of those kind of students a district has, the more state help they'll get?
Correct. I mean, the formula is weighted, so the greater the student need, essentially the more money the district will get in order to help those students.
How does this work out with property tax? Does this affect local property taxes at all?
Well, property taxes are clearly an issue because that is how the local community funds its share, and the level of the local community's ability is one of the factors. And so, if a local community just doesn't have the capacity to raise enough money to meet the needs of those students, then that's why that community may receive a little bit more.
A little bit more of the state aid. But again,
yes,
that's always something that's ongoing as far as an argument at the state level.
Right.
Everybody bought into this. You said everybody's on board with this. So this is something that pleases everybody. Obviously, maybe it didn't please a good compromise is where not everybody gets everything they want.
Sure. I mean, we worked very hard on developing a formula that could get consensus. I might have wanted a little bit more on one side. Somebody else might have wanted a little bit more on another side. But I'm very comfortable with it. We all were. We all think it is a tremendous improvement over the current system. And we also have built into the law 5 years from when we adopted the formula as a commission, we revisit it to see if we need to tweak any elements of it. So I think that this was a very positive movement, and it shows that when we work in small groups in a bipartisan way, we can get real things done.
And so now that the governor signed it, this goes into effect with the next state budget?
Correct. It had already been essentially implemented for the 2015-16 state budget temporarily. The governor just signed the law that makes it permanent, if that makes sense, so that we don't have to reenact this formula every year. It's now permanently in state law.
One of the other things that was part of that package of legislation was something with a Sara Agreement. What exactly is that, and what is your involvement in that?
Sure. That relates to online learning for higher education. SARA stands for State Authorization Reciprocity Agreement, which is essentially a compact of states where states agree among themselves voluntarily to accept online learning providers from other states and allow their students to take online learning from other states. So in a very simple way, it allows students from Pennsylvania easier access to take online classes from colleges that are from other states, and it allows Pennsylvania colleges to provide online education to students from other states. And all of that, in the end, reduces the cost, reduces barriers, makes everything more accessible. This was a bill that I had introduced based on some of my own experiences, and I was pleased that we were able to get that bill into this new law.
We already have agreements between colleges within the state and outside the state to have an acceptance of credits earned at one college when you're moving to another college. Is this work into that at all?
It does. I mean, what we're trying to do is make online education easier. The bill, now the law, is more about access, making sure that the state lines, at least for those states within the compact, are not preventing students or preventing colleges from crossing those lines. The idea of transferring credits is something that needs to work out, more on an institution by institution level. But the idea of overall getting more access, particularly for non-traditional students, people returning to school after some absence, individuals with disabilities, veterans, others, making sure that they have easier access and then therefore also at less cost.
And very quickly, that less cost situation, it's because online classes are charged per class or some such thing?
Exactly. There's less overhead. It's cheaper to provide. It's in many ways easier to provide, and so it becomes cheaper, and it helps to address the student loan issue in Pennsylvania, where our students are graduating with tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands in some situations, of debt before they get to start their jobs. So this is an attempt to help address that.
All right, and if you would like to talk to the senator about that or any other issue or get more information on that, you can get a hold of him very easily. All of his social media information is at the bottom of the screen, and coming up in a couple of seconds, we'll tell you how to get a hold of him at his district office. Thanks for watching.
People with disabilities may request a transcript of this program by calling area code 717-787-5166. The TTY number is 1-800-364-1581.